Hi guys, it's Anne here. In today's video I wanted to talk about the Violet Voss Flamingo palette. So I feel like this is a very underrated palette. I feel like it's not really talked about on YouTube at all. So I thought I would do a little video just sort of featuring this palette and just some of my high level thoughts, and of course we'll do some swatches and show some eye looks. Emily Noel just did a video on like underrated eye palettes, and if I were to go through my collection, this would be the #1 underrated eye palette. I feel like nobody mentions this. It's still available on Sephora for $60. I'm pretty sure that's what I paid for it when I bought it. I bought it 2 summers ago. This for me is like a quintessential summer palette. I feel like I really only ever pull it out in the summer, although it would work really well in springtime too, I think. It's a really nice palette in terms of quality. It's got a really nice big mirror, and it's got 20 shades in it, I believe. Yes, 20 shades. And for me, it is a difficult palette to use on its own because it is very bright. So if you don't like bright colors at all, this palette is not for you. Also, if you already have a lot of bright palettes, you probably don't need this. I just feel like, for me, this is a very unique palette. I don't have anything else in my collection like this. I also don't really have a lot of colorful palettes because, to be honest, I don't wear a lot of colorful shadows very often. I usually just wear a pop of color. So for me, this palette, I like to pair it with something else. Like I will do sort of a neutral eye, and then I'll do maybe a pop of color from bikini or flip-flop. So for me, with this palette too, I'm mostly drawn to the pinks, and there are quite a few pinks in here that are really, really nice. You have flamingo, watermelon, coral, donut, flip-flops, and seashells. And pinwheel, it looks a little orangey, but it's got like a reddish pink, sort of like almost a duochrome color. So what we'll do is I will go through swatches first. I apologize. The swatches run onto my hand because I have a very short arm and I didn't want to do 2 rounds of swatches. I wanted to try and do the whole palette at once, so they do run onto my hand, and then we'll talk about a few different eye looks that I've done with this palette recently. So those swatches were just single finger swatches, no primer, no water, no nothing. And I think, again, some of the colors are really intense on this palette. Like, you can get really carried away. Others are not as intense. You need to build them up a little bit more. So that's what makes this a bit of an unusual palette, because the pigmentation consistency is not there, like it's not consistent, but again, there's like a lot of different finishes in here. I would say that like most of the mattes are very pigmented in terms of for mattes and for the types of colors. And again, the shimmers, most of them are really, really pigmented. And like this black, I don't know if you saw in that the swatches, it ain't playing around. Like this is probably the most intense black I have ever used. So quickly talk about this first look. This first look is, I actually featured this in my Pan That Palette update video just recently. And in this look, unfortunately did not write down all of the colors, but I think I used Seashell, Pinwheel, and Flamingo for this look. So in the inner corner it's Seashell, the outer corner is Pinwheel, and then I think I used a little bit of Flamingo. Perhaps it was Coral. They're very similar in the outer corner just to sort of blend a little bit. But yeah, these are the colors, like when I use this palette, I'm not gonna lie, this is what I gravitate to and what I will generally use the most. The next look I want to talk about is a pink and yellow look I did. And if you watched, I forget what video I filmed, I've kind of filmed a whole bunch of videos recently, and this I wore in one of my videos. I used sand all over, and for the brow bone, I used lemonade in the crease and as a transition color. I used pineapple mostly in the inner corner. Then I used flip-flops on the outer half of the lid, and then I used watermelon on the outer corner. Pineapple is a really pretty color. Lemonade is a little, I don't know. For yellow, it's pretty good, but I'm not really into yellow, so I can't really compare it to anything else because I honestly don't think I have a yellow shadow in any other palette. I could be wrong, but if I do, I'd be surprised. The next look that I want to show is a purple and teal lid. To be honest, I just wanted to keep this as a one color shadow because I really like Bikini. So I used Bikini, which is the purple color in this palette, all over the lid. Then I used a little bit of Beach Ball on the outer corner, almost kind of like a shadow liner. Then I used Surf. Surf is one of my favorite colors. It's one of those duochrome type colors. It's green and blue. It's just a very understated color, but it's really, really pretty. I actually like to use that all over lid as a one shadow color. So I use that sort of like on the inner corner in the crease. Kind of gave a bit of a mermaid vibe. I don't know if it just made me look a little sick, but I was kind of going for a bit of a mermaid look. And then I used Donut on the lower lash line. I also again used sand a little bit on the brow bone to just blend things. Then I did an orange look. The oranges in this palette I do like. Like again, I've talked about this, I'm not a huge orange fan, but these oranges are really nice. And Island is one of my favorite shadows in this palette. Again, it's pretty intense. Like it's a really, like, it's orange. It's Babam kind of orange, which is really surprising. So I used Island all over the lid and on the lower lash line. I used Popsicle in the crease just to blend it out. I used a tiny bit of Seashell in the inner corner to brighten things up. And then again, I used a tiny bit of Sandals on the outer lid just to deepen the outer lid ever so slightly, just so it wasn't a one color look. And then I'm also wearing this palette today. This is probably like the most subtle look you can get out of this palette. That's what I was going for and trying. So I used Sand, which is the beige color, all over the lid. And then I used Sunbathe in the crease. So that's sort of the lighter orange color. Again, just very gently in the crease. Then I took Seashell and just very gently tapped it over the lid so I could get a little bit of shimmer. Seashell is another shade where it's a one and done. You can just tap this all over the lid or spread it all over the lid however you want. Fluffy brush, patting it on. And it's got like a beige undertone and then the pinky like sheen, so it's just a very easy color to wear, and it looks really, it's one of those colors that like in the sunlight looks really, really pretty because it just has that little bit of like iridescent shimmer all over. And then I did put Sunnies as basically my liner. I did use my pencil liner to line close to the lash line, but then the sort of wing, I used Sunnies with an angled brush. Like it is an intense black. So those are all the looks that I have done with this palette recently. Again, it's not a palette that I will play with very often, and I'll be honest, I do kind of shy away from some of these teal shades just because they're not my jam usually, but they are really pretty. And overall, like, there's really only like, I would say only these three shades are the ones that I use the least. And everything else I do use. So for me, that's actually a very usable palette, even though it's very colorful. Do I recommend this palette? This is like a, this is where I waver and flip-flop because, and no pun intended, there's the shade called flip-flops. I have a hard time recommending a colorful palette because I know it can be hit or miss. A neutral palette I can easily recommend because I know 99% of people are going to be like a-okay. This one, it's hard for me to recommend because I feel like you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. This is like a really personal preference type palette. If you have a lot of colorful palettes, this probably is gonna be ho-hum to you because you're gonna be like, oh, I already have this in a million other palettes. If you're more of a neutral person, this one might be like way too overwhelming. If you're like wanting to dabble into color, I feel like this is a safe palette because I feel like you're gonna get some really cool pops of color that are fun but not scary. Like Flip-Flops is really fun, Donuts and Bikini. Again, all the shimmers I feel like in this palette are very wearable and very approachable, and I feel like you can play with some of the mattes. Like again, if you don't like pinks, you probably don't like this because there's like 3 different pink mattes. But yeah, like it's hard for me to recommend this because it's really gonna be, are you drawn to this color scheme or not? If not, don't buy this. Like, just don't, because you're not gonna like it. But if you're drawn to this color scheme and you think you have a place for this, like the quality is there. Like I feel like it's really good quality. It's a really interesting color scheme. Again, I keep saying this, it's unique to what I have. I really enjoy this. Like, I get so sad that I never see nobody has this palette. And I think it might be Samantha March. I don't know if she's decluttered it, but a couple times she's like pulled this out in her palette declutters, and I'm like, please don't declutter, please don't declutter. Like, you're the only other person I know on YouTube that I think has this palette. I could be wrong. If you had this, let me know. I'd like to know what your opinion is on this because I feel like I don't hear anybody talk about this. So I need to look up and see if anybody else has done a video on this palette and see what other people say, because I think it's a really good palette. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy playing. Like, this makes me love makeup, because I feel like I'm really playing with this and I'm being creative when I use this. This makes me want to also buy more Violet Voss palettes. So I do have that small creme brulee one, and again, quality in that one, like her shadows are intense, which makes me want to like look at some of her other palettes. I know her larger palettes are very expensive, especially here in Canada. I feel like they're very expensive, so that's what gives me pause. But the little bite-sized ones, I think, are in a reasonable price range for the quality. So yeah, so that's my little update on this palette, the Flamingo palette. Again, the packaging, I love the packaging. I think it's super cute, super fun. It's very Miami. Anyway, hope you liked this video. If you did, feel free to give it a little thumbs up down below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my tiny little channel here in Toronto, Canada. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon. Bye.